There we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Developing Palates. I am Aaron Loomis coming to you from the Drew Estate Studio. And with me tonight is John McTavish from the Bastania Studio. How you doing, John?
I'm doing well. I already whinged a little bit on our recap videos. I'm 49 years old, and I thought it'd be a really good idea to do weekend labor for money. And I remembered why you shouldn't be doing that at 49 years old because the body can't really handle that. So, a steady diet of IPAs and a cigar, I should be right as rain any minute.
And this is out in the snow and stuff too, right?
Mm. Of course, yeah. The only blessing was that it was mid 50 degrees in the mountains, which is very bizarre. So at least I didn't freeze any toes or fingers off. But I'm a little banged up. I'm not gonna lie. My lower back has seen better days. So
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So tonight is our annual cigar media recap show and we're doing 2023, obviously, since that year has just wrapped up. And as always, we like to invite some of our cigar media friends to join us and talk about how the year went and prognosticate a bit about the future coming year. So I will introduce our guests. First, I will introduce from Cigar Dojo, Master Sensei himself, Mr. Eric Guttormson. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing good, my man. I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm excited to be on the show. Got some beer ready to drink and some cigars ready to smoke.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us. All right. Also from Cigar Coop, Mr. William Cooper. How you doing, Will?
Hey, I got a problem.
All right. What's the problem?
All right. I got this box of my father, Labor You 100 años, right?
Yeah.
And I want to smoke one tonight. I
Okay.
got this brand
I
new
don't.
box.
I didn't.
But
I didn't think you could. I thought they're impossible to buy.
they're impossible to buy. It shouldn't be a number one cigar deal. But the bigger problem, guy, is, and I was told I don't smoke enough of these. Will you guys let me smoke one of these without a receipt?
Yes. If you don't have a receipt, you can,
okay,
still
thank
smoke
you.
You can
on
still
our
smoke
show.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure because told reviewers buy cigars have to have a receipt. So just want to make sure.
Yep. I think you get a free pass tonight. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Should be good to go.
Coop, you can do whatever you stinking want.
There we go.
So I'm told I can't. So I get
wor-
bullied enough. I
The
get bullied
world
enough.
is your
Doesn't happen.
nah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
what are you gonna live by their rules? Screw them. You do what you want.
I will do it.
All right. So before we get started, let's take a little pass about what people are drinking and smoking this evening. I'm going to start with you, Coop. I know you're smoking that My Father.
Yep.
Are you Diet Coking it up tonight, or what's happening
It's
over there?
Diet Pepsi.
What's happening?
The person who buys groceries in the house bought Diet Pepsi, so and I'm not the one who buys groceries.
All right.
That's a party foul.
Yeah.
All right, Eric. How about you? What are you smoking tonight? What are you drinking tonight?
Well, I'm gonna smoke right now. I'm smoking the Aging Room Rare Collection, but it's almost done. I'm preparing to smoke this delicious Tatawahe 20th anniversary. That's really what I had planned for the show. So I'm going to
Nice.
smoke this guy. I am drinking obviously a little Topo Chico, but I've got this Wiley Roots lager. Now, Wiley Roots,
Ooh.
they're sort of known for their crazy beers. They're like slushies and all kinds of they're almost like an experimental brewery.
Mhm.
But this is interesting because it's just a lager. And so look at the beautiful color on this, you guys. It's just gorgeous
There
looking
you go.
beer. So yeah, it's really good. Just a simple lager, but done, like in a craft way.
All right, John. What are you drinking and smoking tonight?
Well, my standby is Tokyo Drift, the turbocharged IPA. This used to be kind of a limited seasonal beer, but I think enough people like me said, you guys should really make this not limited, and then they did, and so now we can get it year round. It's kind of just a really nice crushable IPA. It's one of the few ones that I find pairs really nicely with cigars because the hoppiness of it isn't like super astringent. It's just got like that really sort of nice West Coast citrusy, balanced, not too much in your face. And then because my birthday week, I feel like just continues on for weeks. I can just keep smoking in honoration of my birthday. I went back to the old stock, and I've got a warped Maestro del Tiempo from the original release series. And man, these are so good. So glad I lit that up today. And then, and, you know, I don't know how long we're going to go, but just in case, I have a new Fonseca on deck, just in
There you go.
case to follow
Great
up.
cigar. Great. I've
Such
been
a good
really.
cigar.
It is. Really is.
Yeah, such a good cigar.
Careful, people are gonna call you a My Father fanboy or Coop. Keep going with that.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
path.
Yeah, 2 white waters. Yeah.
2 in a row. Yeah. 2 in a row. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's right. The world we live in.
I'm not smoking. I
Ridiculous.
got a little four rows of single barrel here tonight, so we'll just go with that. So
Is that the
Atta
single
boy.
barrel proof or just the single barrel?
just a single barrel.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. All right. So the way this usually goes, we're gonna tackle a couple of topics. We're gonna start on the positive side, and then we'll go down negative town. But yeah, we're gonna start out on the nice side. So tonight, what we're gonna start out with is talking about some surprises in regards to individual cigars or brands this year. Just something that jumped out at you in 2023 that maybe you weren't expecting, or you were expecting good things, but it still surpassed your expectations on a single cigar or a brand as a whole. So we're going to start with you, John, on this, and then we'll kind of go around the group.
So I actually was really, and this, I mean, I know I'm kind of a little bit of an Espinosa fanboy, but I was really impressed with the Las Ses Provincia release this year, which is the, if I can read my notes through my giant microphone, the CMT, which isn't to say that they haven't been good. I've really enjoyed the releases over the year, but I don't think I was expecting this year's release to be kind of my favorite. And it really kind of from the first few puffs, I was like, oh, this is, really my jam. It's not as intense as a lot of Espinosa releases. It's not even as intense as some of the previous Las Ses Provincias, which is maybe why it speaks to me, because it's got some depth you have to reach for. But that was really nice. Should I just do my 3, or do you want to go around?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
I think Rainier is killing it with his new factory. That's HVC. And it's a very small brand, but man, he's put out some really, really great cigars over the years. His Black Friday, I think a lot of people are familiar with. So the Selection number 1 is, I think it was kind of his first release out of the new factory. And I'm a bit of a cynic because I've been around for a few years. So I know that, like, look, when you have a new factory, there's a break-in period, and sometimes that first few cigars, it might be a bit of a thing. And instead, he's just like, no, we're just going to release a good cigar out of the gate. And I was like, okay, well, that's a way to go. And so I was definitely both surprised in a pleasant, happy way, and impressed with him being able to get up and running and just get a banger out of the gate. And then lastly, the CLE PCA exclusive. And again, I think this is more of the cynicism of being around the industry for a while. I was like, PCA exclusive, I'm sure it's going to be fine. But I really wasn't. I wasn't expecting to be impressed. I was expecting it just to be, a normal cigar. It'll be fine, whatever. But it was good. It was worth the wait. I mean, obviously, I'd like to smoke it right after the PCA, but that's not how things work in the industry. And so we got it after a bit of a wait. Pretty happy about that.
All right, Eric, how about you? Any particular cigars or brands that really kind of surprised you or stood out for you this year?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think McTavish, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the HVC wasn't this year; it was last year, 2022, and then this year he did the natural version of it.
Oh, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you got me.
But
Yeah, it was
that
probably
doesn't
November or
discount.
October.
Yeah, doesn't discount what you said, because you were 100% right. Like that cigar was such a banger. I love that. Now,
Banger.
I wasn't exactly as enthralled with the natural version. I'm not saying it was bad.
Interesting.
But I thought the first one was really good. I have 3 cigars that sort of took me by surprise this year. The first one, kind of like Aaron said, I wasn't surprised. I shouldn't have been surprised by it per se, but I ended up being surprised about how good it really was going to be. And that was the Crux Habano. Like, I liked all the Epicures that they've done so far, but that Epicure Habano, it was so stinking good. I love that cigar. I smoked so many of those cigars this summer, just a ridiculous amount. And so while I expected it to be good, to Aaron's point, I didn't expect it to be that good. So that's one for me for sure. Another cigar that really surprised me was the La Aurora 120th anniversary. Super good cigar. And then finally the I'll go along with McTavish and the Espinosa theme, except for mine was the Murcielago TAA because
Oh,
when I smoked that, I'm not again, it wasn't like I wasn't expecting anything, but it was a light version of a Murcielago, and so I was just like, okay, whatever, no big deal. And I remember having that and saying, holy cow, like this cigar is fantastic. I love that stinking cigar. I thought it was fantastic. And then the other
I'm jealous I
surprise,
didn't get to smoke it.
oh yeah, you got to get your hands on it. It's so good. I love that cigar. It's really, to me, like I'm sort of in the stage of my smoking cycles where you go through cycles, and like Maduros for a while, you like Connecticut's for a while. It's like I'm just really into that natural wrapped cigar. So that one just really hit for me on kind of all levels. And then the brand that surprised me is Illusione, because they go to a new factory, the Ocotel factory, AJ's Ocotel factory, and did the original documents, Habano, and that thing is just milky chocolate. And so I picked them as a brand because, you know, Dion sort of has this sort of flavor profile that you're kind of used to. It's either, the Epernay sort of flavor profile, or he has his Aganor sort of flavor profiles that he does. So then when he was going to a new factory, I was kind of worried, like, how's this gonna go? Like, but he nailed it, man. It's just absolute milk chocolate, table cream, buttery, everything that you want. And so that's my surprise factory, even though obviously they're not a surprise, but going to a brand new factory for a brand is kind of risky. And he pulled it off perfectly.
Nice. All right, Coop, how about you for surprises?
And I'm going to count this for 2023 releases, even though my calendar is a little off, as you know. So I'll keep it to 2023. The one I'm going to kick off with, and this was a big surprise for me, what came from CLE as well. It was the Sensorium. It was the Asen 60, and that's the tobacco. That's the cigars using the Pinarino tobacco in it. That was a fantastic, fantastic cigar there. And it's a pricey cigar. It's not cheap. It's about, I think it's $50, but I felt like it definitely smoked like a super premium cigar as far as that goes. So I was really impressed with that. That's going to be one of, it's already eligible on the 2024 list. I'll echo the HVC Selection #1 Natural. I have been pretty critical of Rainier's when it comes to Habano tobacco. I just felt that's been kind of his weak spot. And finally, he put out a Habano blend that I really, really like. And I think I know there's always a battle between the Maduro and the Natural, and I think people are on different sides of the fence. I think that's a great thing to have when you have a line like that, and you can argue on which one's better. And then I know it's a cigar that came out very late last year, but I actually have, again, I bought a box of these. The Perdomo 30th anniversary Maduro, in the Epicure, which is the kind of the Toros, like the Robusto size. Fantastic. I think of the 30th anniversaries, that's the best one. I find it's the closest thing I've had to a rotation cigar in a while. So, those three I think were my picks.
I got a
Aaron, what
bone.
about you?
I got a bone to pick with Coop on that. So I
Oh,
got a
all
bone
right.
to pick with Coop on
Oh,
that.
throwing down the
Coop,
gauntlet earlier.
How could you say that Rainier's weak spot is his Habanos? That's crazy. That's his
Name me,
strength.
what's the other Habano that he's released that's been good?
Isn't the 500-year anniversary?
Corojo. That's Corojo.
Yeah.
He
could be right.
does Connecticut broadleaf really well and does Corojo
Yeah.
really well. But
No, look, the 500th anniversary, I think, is one of the best cigars he's ever done.
All right. Well,
by
I
far.
stand corrected.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Patina anniversary that we made as our number one cigar of the year. It was, I like most cigars. I'm not saying that this just came out of nowhere, but he doesn't do new releases very often, and this was an interesting release, and it was very good. Not saying that he needs to go regular production or anything like that, but like it was just a good offering at the time, and I thought that was really enjoyable. I'll echo everybody's sentiments about HBC. I would say that's probably it's just a brand that like is doing things really well. Regardless if you're large or small, it doesn't really matter, but it's a brand that I don't think gets a lot of attention. So if people are not familiar with HBC, they really should check it out and to get a sense of what the brand is, to see if it's something that's up their alley. Because he's doing stuff out of his new factory. Still does, did like the rare at El Titan. So, it's still got a mix of stuff going on. So it's pretty cool. But a brand that continues to do well for me is JRE. Especially when they're doing the Lanceros, but even the limited edition this year, that's not the Lanceros. It's another Toro. It's just such a good cigar. It is, they do have cigars that just really miss for me, but they usually fix that with the Lancero version of it, because I don't like it in the Robusto or the Rothschild or the Toro, but then they'll do it in the Lancero and then it will be great. So I like that they keep playing with the blend in different sizes and stuff like that. So there's going to be something that somebody should like, right? You're not going to just completely be a complete miss in a category. So
Aaron, did you have the Sumatra?
I did not smoke the Sumatra this year.
It's really good.
I didn't think it was, I didn't like it.
I liked it. I thought it was
well, when they do the Lancero, I'll smoke it then.
But I loved the limited edition, which is the one you brought.
That's a
fantastic cigar.
And the classic they did in the Elegante, I really enjoyed it. I really did not like it on the initial release. But in the Lancero, it was wonderful. The other nice thing about that brand is that the cigars usually are not expensive.
Yeah.
Even the limited edition was only what, $15-16. But the Lanceros are like $8.60, $9. Like that's ridiculous.
You almost do a double take because you're like, is this 2016? Like, what's going on with these prices?
Yeah, exactly. So and Honduran tobacco, which is usually not a lot of people's cup of tea, right? It's starting to get out there and starting to, they're starting to, grow on people and stuff like that. But when they do it right, it can be very enjoyable. So
Aaron, I have to say the Aladino Cameroon, I did not like it when I first smoked it until I had the Lonsdale size, and then I absolutely freaking loved it. Like I couldn't get enough of it. Like it was such a dramatic difference in Vitolas. Like that's still one of my favorite cigars, but only in that Lonsdale size. I didn't like the Toro.
Yep, I think I was in the same boat. I didn't like it as much. So I definitely like Lancero or that format better. So thinner ring gauge usually sometimes it doesn't work because you're taking stuff out of the blend, but it works for them. So all right, let's flip to the other side now. We're going to talk about maybe some disappointments from this year. So same kind of format. Maybe it's an individual cigar that just left you hanging, or maybe it's a brand for the year that just kind of made you shake your head like, man, this didn't go their way this year. So
I have a prediction. Me, Coop, and McTavish are all going to have the same cigar.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I think we're going to have it too.
So let's flip it around a little bit. We're going to start with you, Coop. You can start with the disappointments.
Okay. Number one, and this, I had high hopes for this because I like the original version. It's the Matilde Serena Maduro. I loved the Connecticut they did. So I said, okay, they're gonna do a lighter Maduro. It was not good. I haven't had a Matilde core line that I was so disappointed in as the Matilde Serena Maduro. It just was a complete miss. Second one, and Eric's gonna yell at me on this one.
Oh God, no.
Matapa.
What? Are you out of your mind?
Matapa was a complete miss. I'm sorry, Nick.
Coop, you are crazy. That's
no, I'm not.
Amazing.
No, I'm not. There are other people who.
That's just crazy talk.
Look, Nick, the Sumatra's not your comfort zone. Please don't do that in your comfort zone anymore. It's just. I'm sorry, Nick. That's the worst cigar you blended. I don't know what else to say. I love your stuff, Nick, but that one was a miss. Both natural, claro, it didn't matter. And number three, and this was a painful one to admit, and it's not a Sumatra release either. I had such high hopes for this cigar. I talked about it on Eric's show the other night, so he knows what I'm talking about. La Verada. I just didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
I had such illusions of what that cigar was going to be, and I'd rather smoke the $50 Asylum, to be honest with you, than that. It did not smoke like an ultra premium cigar to me, so it was a big miss in my book. From Crown Heads.
All right, Eric, your turn. Let's see if you can match up with Coop.
I only have one on my list that like struck me as a major disappointment because I bought so many and it's not cheap, and I was so excited about that Crown Heads La Verada. Everything about it screamed, Eric, you're gonna love this cigar.
Yeah,
like, the way it looked, the blend, everything. I was just so excited about that cigar, and I didn't like it, and then Jordan was like, "Oh, come on, like you just don't have your palate shot or whatever, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh, I'll give it another shot." And then he tried it, he didn't like it, and then I tried a couple more. Like I just found myself struggling to get any flavor out of that cigar. It was so bizarre. Like that's just not a Crown Heads thing. I'm a big fan of the company, and I love most of what they do, but to me, huge miss.
Yeah.
All right, John, how about you?
Yeah, I didn't have specifically the La Rada on my list, but I don't disagree. And again, I think it comes from a place of kind of being a bit of a Crown Heads fanboy, where like I really wanted it to be a cigar we were talking about on the top 25 list at the end of the year, and so it was, it was a bit of a disappointment because I wanted to see it up there. Eric's gonna hate me for two cigars. One is the La Aurora 120th.
Really?
I've
Wow.
had some just incredible cigars out of La Aurora. In fact, some of the best cigars I've ever smoked have been out of La Aurora.
I really like that.
Some, go ahead.
No, I just said I really like that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it taste is subjective, so it could be a
Yeah.
me problem. Maybe my expectations were too high, but I was just, it wasn't bad. I was expecting it to be a blockbuster,
Gotcha.
and I was like, it's okay,
It
but
wasn't
I
quite
wanted
what I wanted either out of a La
Yeah.
Aurora anniversary, but it wasn't terrible. I didn't think it was
It
terrible.
wasn't terrible. It just,
Yeah.
I wanted it to be again a cigar that we were talking about in the top 25 list
Yeah.
at the end of the year, and it just didn't make it. I'm gonna have the Matapa up there for sure. We just finished doing our Claro review. I had a poor experience with the Maduro, and I was like, well, that's okay. We got a Claro. That'll pull it out. Did not have much of a better experience with the Claro, and I'll actually go one step further. I love Nick. I love the stuff he does. He's put out so many great cigars, and like all his cigars this year for me were just a miss. The Olmec Maduro, the Olmec Claro, the Matapa Claro, the Matapa Maduro. I was just like,
That
do
was
I
a
have
miss.
do I have 12 months of COVID? Like, what's going on? I just all of them didn't make my my personal taste profile. And prior to this, I would say I could pick up anything from Nick and know that I'm gonna have a great experience, not a good experience, but a great experience. So that was a little disappointing. I was, well,
I was a lot disappointed, but I think he should have held off on Matapa even after Olmec. It was too soon. I think he had to give Olmec a time to grow in the market. Even if Matapa was good, I think it was a mistake releasing it when he did.
Yeah, I can see that. All right. I'm gonna start out with a brand, and it goes along with the cigar that you guys have mentioned, and it's just Crown Heads overall for the year. La Verada was probably the cigar I liked best from them this year, but it wasn't a cigar I liked. It was just that was the highest rated one I had. But the other stuff, Azul Oro and the Mil Dias Marinitos, both not good either. It was just it just seemed like a miss. Even the Ozgeners were not good for me this year. It just I don't know. It's just
the Calaveras was good. I'll say that. But I agree.
I didn't smoke that one, so I couldn't.
Yeah,
really
that
say,
was
okay.
out of my father fanboy. Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, but I had that one
Yeah,
down.
and see, and I like the Mil Dias. The Mil Dias, I think that was a high score on that because that one really hit for me.
Yeah.
But agreed on the others.
A cigar that I think was a big miss was the Padron Family Reserve Natural number 96. I didn't smoke the Maduro after that natural, but just I expected more, especially for another expensive.
I was high on that one.
Anniversary release.
I liked the 95 and the 96. I didn't like the 95s.
Okay, yeah,
yeah, but the Maduro was better, is what I'll say.
But a cigar that really takes the cake for me is the Sencillo Black Lancero, a Plasencia made cigar that was just some of the worst construction I've ever experienced in a cigar, and it was pretty much across the board for everybody that we smoked with. I just don't know how those cigars made it out of a factory. So especially Plasencia, it baffles it blows my mind. So I could see if maybe come out a little bit wet and but you can't expect the consumer to like dry box it for a month to try to get it to be something that's smokable. So, yeah, I had high hopes for it. A nice affordable Lancero, a la JRE, but it didn't happen. So, there we go. All right, let's talk a little bit about some trends from 2023, and I have a couple on my list, but feel free to throw any topics out, and we can hit them back and forth. But and this will be a topic that we talk about later when we talk about 2024. But a lot of Ecuadorian wrappers on cigars. I have a review queue that we have built up for the team so that we kind of have listed what we have. And I think at one time I had like 14 or 16 cigars in a row that had Ecuadorian wrappers of different varietals. So did you guys see a lot of Ecuadorian wrap cigars from what you guys were smoking this year?
Yeah, and unfortunately, they were in the varietal I didn't like, Sumatra.
Yeah.
It's just there was no Sumatra that wowed me last year. It was just really, it was a down year. Like if this this is probably going to change with what's going on in Ecuador, which is I'm hoping is good. I don't mind Ecuadorian Connecticut shade. Habano is hit or miss me, but the Sumatra, just stop. I don't want to see any more Sumatras. Yeah.
So I went into this. I mean, I knew there's a lot of Ecuadorian wrappers out there, but I went into this going, I was like, I feel like, Ecuadorian was definitely the number one wrapper, but San Andre was like the number two. And then I kind of just used our top 25 list as sort of the, the canary in a coal mine sort of thing. And boy, was I wrong. Ecuadorian was like 12 of our top 25 for wrappers. I mean, granted, they weren't all the same wrapper, right? You've got some Sumatra, you've got some Connecticut, et cetera, but 12 out of 25, that's a lot. Like that's, we're almost at the halfway point of our whole top 25 list. The surprising one, can you guys guess at what the number two wrapper was for the top 25 DP list this year? Because it came as a shock to me.
Cameroon.
No. No guesses, Aaron?
Not broadleaf.
Could be broadleaf because we had the
USA Tobacco was I mean, it wasn't all broadleaf. There's some Pennsylvania in there. But USA was the second highest number wrapper on our list, which I did a bit of a double take. I was like, that doesn't seem right to me, but numbers don't lie.
All right. How about the trend of anniversary cigars? Are you anticipating that you want them to produce more of these?
No. I mean,
why not? Why does it matter?
Okay, some companies do it okay, but this is the scenario I hate. Okay, we're gonna do an anniversary cigar, but we're gonna go to another factory to do it, right? So you work with this factory for a long time, and then suddenly we're gonna go to another factory to do it, right? I want to see if you're gonna do an anniversary cigar, do it with the person who got you to the dance. If you're contracting with that factory for years, do it with the person who got you to the dance. In my opinion, to me, I don't know. It just doesn't make a lot of sense with that. And then like I said, I've seen, I look, I get 100 años cigar for the patriarch of my father family. Next year is gonna be crazy. This year and next year are gonna be crazy with anniversaries. Just there's a lot coming up. So, I don't know. Like I said, the Perdomo 30th. I like the fact that it's a regular production cigar as opposed to a limited. So, I would say if you're gonna do an anniversary cigar, make it regular production, but don't do it that often to do it. I just don't like. I'm just tired of the one and dones as well.
I mean, I didn't really look to see how many, like count the number of anniversaries we did. So it's really an anecdotal feeling thing. But I didn't really feel like this year was an outlier for anniversaries. Like somehow in my head, I feel like 2 years ago or a year ago, there was maybe double the amount of anniversary cigars that were out. I feel like, this year seemed like a normal amount. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't seeing like a company that's only been in business for 3 years doing an anniversary cigar. I saw, companies that have been around for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years doing anniversary cigars. And I was like, okay, that tracks. That makes sense. You're not doing a 40-year anniversary cigar. You're doing a legitimate limited edition anniversary. And to be blunt, the prices were lower than I think in past years because I think typically anniversary cigars are normally call it 18, 20 plus. And it felt like half the anniversary cigars we reviewed this year, including the Perdomo, were all pretty affordable. Like they're all like, even the Patina was, I was saying, like, for what it is from a small company, it's pretty affordable. And I think that prices have certainly been higher in the past, way higher.
Seems like I can't remember if it was. I could be wrong about this, but it seems like when we had our 10th anniversary for the dojo, it seemed like that year there was a lot of other companies that were also having their anniversaries.
Right.
Year. And that was last. Was it last year? Jeez, now I'm so screwed up. But
I feel like it was 22.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was. So this year didn't strike me as being crazy or anything, and I guess I'm like John. I didn't like track it or whatever, just going off of just memory. So it didn't seem crazy, but I thought the ones that were there were really good. Obviously, the Perdomo and this Tatuaje that I'm smoking, the
Yeah, so
20th.
that was a good one too.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Pete
I
could
like
just keep releasing limiteds, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
I thought, My Father came out late last year, the 20th. And I thought it was My Father and Tat were the two big ones last year. 40th Antilles was last year, but it was the year before.
That's
that
true.
makes sense.
Yep.
But I know, like, the next 2 years, like, Altadis has a ton of anniversary. They have the 150th of Romeo Julieta. They have the 90th of Monte Cristo. And I think they got the 180th of H. Upman all coming. I mean, so there's a lot of those coming up next year. So I think this year maybe a little off. And I didn't think 2022 was big unless I'm missing something.
I mean, I feel like we're going to have more Chinese Zodiac releases in 2024 than limited releases across the market. It's like I keep seeing press releases, and I'm like, you guys know that the Chinese Zodiac is right now. Like, it's not in July, it's not in June, and it, like, I see these press releases, I'm like, we're going to have a Zodiac release almost every month this year. Like, what is going on?
And more is coming. I mean, I heard Placencia's got their announcement coming in the next few days. So there's more probably coming.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope they're good. For
me, anniversary cigars should be special, and I don't feel like that is what happens with a lot of them that are released. They're just too close to what already exists, and it doesn't seem like it's a celebration to me. It just seems like it's we have this event, we're putting out a cigar for it, we hope you buy it, kind of a thing. But it's just not unique enough to really. I just see him as like another line release. I don't see it as like, this is something that we put together that was pretty special, and we really want you to, take your time, smoke this. It's going to be something a bit different. So I just don't see him that way. Every once in a while, you'll get one that does that, but for the most part, it's just another release from.
I will. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I will echo one of the comments in the chat about limiteds being truly limited, because I think certainly in the past we've seen many companies go, we're doing a limited edition, and then we found some more tobacco, so we're now it's like, listen, man, if it's a limited edition or whatever, just do it once, make it special. It's okay for it to go away, but it always felt kind of like cheapening the anniversary limitedness of it to say, like, well, it sold really well, so now we're going to make it again. Okay, but don't call it limited to begin with, because I don't know. It just cheapens it a little bit for me. It's all feelings based, but it cheapens it a little bit for me.
The one limited that really missed, and I didn't put this on my cigar disappointment, but I think Davidoff just completely swung and missed with the 10th anniversary. And not because I didn't like the cigar, which I didn't think it was horrible, but that whole, like, the whole story of the Davidoff Nicaragua, right, was the Nicaraguan puro being done in the Dominican. And they didn't do that for the 10th anniversary cigar. They didn't do something that got them to the dance, I felt. And would it really have been hard to come up with a Nicaraguan puro to do that? Or was it just kind of like, we needed to check a box, so let's go get this Ecuadorian wrap Davidoff and make it the Davidoff Nicaragua 10th. That was just a complete miss in my book. And that's why, you may say I'm a fanboy about this Le Bijou 100 Años, but it sticks to the formula of the Le Bijou, is what I'm saying, which is a great cigar. So that's why I thought this was great. Yeah.
I agree, Coop. I think I'm not a blender, obviously, and I don't own a
Right.
cigar brand, but if you said like, what should a limited edition or an anniversary be? And it's like, well, it should reflect the core character of what that cigar is, but make it more sophisticated or make it something more interesting than what the core release is. And I think companies who did that very really well, like Pete and
Pete,
my
yep.
father, those and which I didn't mention in the brands, the Bishop's Blend 10th anniversary for me was a good example of that.
Yep.
You've made a cigar that's a little more sophisticated, still retains the core of what that line is without being a complete departure from
Yeah.
kind of what it is. And I will say, as a bit of a fanboy of the Rocky Patel Edge, I was a little disappointed in the Edge anniversary because to me, it just tasted like a departure of the cigar that I've been smoking for like 15 years or whatever. And I was like, this doesn't really, it doesn't really taste like an Edge, and it doesn't really taste like an Edge that's
It,
somehow better or different or whatever. It just tasted like a different cigar, and so
and,
I
and to
didn't personally enjoy it.
Yeah, to quote Eric, it was a Joe Six-Pack cigar at the Edge, right? You suddenly now didn't make a Joe Six-Pack cigar. And oh
Right.
yeah, it just wasn't as good as the Joe Six-Pack cigar.
And that that's a fair point. If you're going to make
Right.
a cigar that represents kind of the blue collar,
Yeah.
because the Edge was always kind of a blue collar cigar
Yeah.
for me. It's affordable, it's
Yeah.
readily available. Make it within that thing. Don't make it a
Yeah.
Davidoff, because that's not what that cigar is. Make
Exactly.
it make it for the Edge smokers. And
Yeah.
I felt like I was the Edge. I mean, I still got edges in my humidor, so I feel like I'm the Edge smoker. And
yeah. The two that I was thinking of when I was talking earlier about anniversary cigars moving factories, it was 1502 and Karen Berger were the two. And they both went to AJ, and AJ's a good factory and everything, but why aren't you celebrating the factories that you're in already? Like
That was like similar with Epic. When Epic did their
Epic did the same
AJ as well. It was completely Charles Fairmore just gets left in the dust.
Right. I don't. And look, I'm not saying AJ makes a great cigar, right? But I'm just saying, do something else with that factory. Do something different. That just don't make your anniversary cigar with that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any other trends from 2023 that you thought were interesting? We kind of.
Well, I think it's fair to say the higher price cigar was a trend this year.
Yeah.
And you can't ignore it. I think if all of us who did lists will say that there was higher priced cigars, and we probably all saying we need to spend less money on cigars this year. The average price that I had for a cigar was $15.56 for cigars reviewed, and for my top 30 it was $19.31. So I mean that's high. No matter, and I'm looking, when you're looking at $12 cigars value, then there's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were only about 10 cents off of you, and the higher mark for the average. I think we were 15.65 or something like that, Aaron.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but that'll publish out on Friday when we do all of our back end stats.
But yeah, it was there's companies that have held back price increases, and I don't think their individual price increases are that much. So I don't think that's what's driving it. I think what we're seeing is when we see the numbers posted for us, it'll be evident because if you look at the sort of the bar graph of it, is a significant shift away from the sort of $8 to $10, 10 to 12, and really the bulk of what we're seeing now is sort of the $15 to $18 mark. And that's a significant shift. I mean, if you think about the average cigar smoker who is spending $10 or $12, to move them up to 15, that's a lot. And we're certainly all pretty regular cigar smokers, so $3 a cigar is not an insignificant sum.
Yeah.
On our list, out of our top 20, if you were to take literally almost half, nine of the 20 were $14, $15, or $16, and the most 4 of them were in the $16 range. So 4 of our, that's almost 25% of our top 20 was in the $16 range, and so that does seem unusual. So I think that you can certainly say that that's a definite trend of 2023.
And not to throw those brands under the bus, but what's funny about that to me is, we just got finished talking about JRE, who the bulk of what they produce is under $10. The new Volstead under Intemperance is like $10 exactly, or $9.90 or something. And like, it's almost to the point where you look at that and you're like, is something wrong with that cigar that it's $6? But it's just they, they have their own factory. They buy tobacco in bulk and they don't charge $15 for a cigar. And so like with the GRE thing, I know Aaron and I have talked on multiple occasions where it's like it almost becomes an outlier on the bottom end where you say it almost seems too inexpensive because everyone else is charging $6 more for the cigar and you don't have to. You know what I mean? Like you're still making money and your cigar is still fairly priced for the market. So it is kind of funny.
It was amazing. When I was looking at the stats for price in 2021, I reviewed 12 cigars over the price of $20. In 2023, that number went up to 23. So in 2 years, it was double, almost double.
Mm.
And then in 2021, cigars from $6 to $8, I reviewed 17. And in 2023, I only reviewed 6. So, and I usually, like I said, when I review a cigar, I don't really think about price. I look about what I think my readers are interested in.
Right.
So, but this year now, I'm like, I know, like, the accountant told me, my wife, she's like, you spent this much on cigars, I was telling you guys today what I spent at Corona.
Yeah.
That's just one store, guys. And it was like, and I had receipts for that one, by the way.
Yeah.
So, you have to, that's something I do have to think about this year. And how many, Aaron, you and I were talking about, there's certain cigars that we'd love to smoke and review.
Yep.
Is it going to make sense and is it going to get an ROI back on traffic for us is what we have to think
Right.
on that now. That's how we have to look at this.
If we were all smart and we just wanted traffic based on like the review cigars and what people are going to read, we'd just be reviewing catalog bundles.
We would. Yeah. If we were
Like
all
that.
smart, yeah. I mean,
that's where the traffic's at.
factory smokes. I mean,
Yep.
look at the traffic it gets. I know. You're right. You're 100% right.
Yeah.
I mean, I have more to say about that when we get into the price discussion, but yeah,
I didn't mean to jump the gun on that. Yeah,
That's
and I
okay.
mean-
That's okay.
Okay.
It's definitely a trend. Definitely a trend for the year. So
Yeah, it was
Oh.
definitely, I thought, a major trend as far as what I saw on that.
did you have any trends from last year, Eric, that jumped out at you?
Let's see here. Well, the price one was the one I had
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah,
had
you-
on my list. So I guess we kind of already covered that.
Okay, no worries. So this next topic is just kind of called interesting industry items, and kind of price was one I had thrown in there. But first one I'll start out with is cigar construction, and the way I like to phrase this kind of question is, do you think the average cigar that you reviewed in 2023 or that you smoked, didn't have to be reviews, whatever you smoked that was a 2023 release, do you think it was better or more poorly constructed than what you smoked in 2022? And anybody that's interested in jumping in on that one can.
I'm gonna say
Go
it's
ahead.
probably similar. I mean,
Okay.
to be honest, like I didn't see, me personally, any like something that jumped out at me as being different. My guess is, maybe if we like looked back 5 years or something, that could theoretically be different. But I didn't notice anything different.
Yeah, I'll echo what Eric said. I think we certainly noticed a stark jump, and there's a variety of reasons that we won't get into, but I definitely noticed a stark jump 2020, 2021, and 2022 with the number of cigars that I was having to mark either for burn issues, which I don't necessarily care about. Like if you need to touch up a cigar, that doesn't really matter to me because it's not really affecting my cigar experience. But when you have a tight draw or a loose draw, to me, that's something that, I don't have control over. That's something that, truly is a construction issue unless I'm an idiot and storing my cigars poorly. But hopefully by now I know what I'm doing. I'd say that 2023 was not worse than 2022, but it's still a little concerning as we talk about the shift in pricing. And Aaron and I have had this conversation numerous times where I say, we're almost to the point where I say, if you're producing a cigar at $20 plus, and I can mark you for a draw problem, that's a problem because there's a lot of companies out there who have zero tolerance for quality control issues, and they simply don't have problems. I mean, we're talking about AJ. To me, AJ's one of the more consistent manufacturers out there. Like, rarely will I smoke a cigar made by AJ or a brand that's coming out of AJ that has a draw or a burn problem. But across the sort of broader industry factory experience is still marking cigars for draw problems and burn problems, and it's it's a little concerning. I mean, fortunately, like I said, I don't think anecdotally in the 100 cigars reviewed this year, I noticed an increase. I think it's fairly flat, but it's still concerning to have to mark cigars for a draw problem.
How about you, Coop? What was your experience like?
Aaron, you and I talked about this a bit, and I think 2023, because I'm gonna go behind on the review cycle, but now I'm firmly into 2023 reviews,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of in sync with everyone. I don't think it got worse. If it bottomed out, it bottomed out in 2022. Maybe there's a slight upswing. I mean, the cigars I had problems with that were really badly constructed were more like what I would call outliers, experimental types of things, like for that 10 by 100, right, which was probably the biggest construction problem I had. But that's an outlier. That's I mean, that's not fair to ding Aganorsa completely on all that, because there are Aganorsa cigars I had that were very well constructed. So those are. But I think if I have to say, I'm confident that maybe the worst is over with 2022. Which is good news. So I'm not having cigars fall apart like I did in 2020. Like I said, that 10 by 100 was an outlier, is the way I'm going to look at it. And I'm going to smoke it again because that was a once smoke thing type of deal. So that's
Right.
not fair to. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I don't. I think I'm in agreement with you guys. I don't think that there was any kind of big drastic change year to year. I did notice like cigars I was smoking closer to the end of the year seemed to have some issues. So there were probably releases that came out around like August, September, October kind of a time frame. But that's not a big enough test case to really say anything. So yeah, I don't feel like there was anything crazy where it really improved over the previous year or got worse. It was just kind of in the same realm. So no real big differences there. All right, let's talk about everybody's favorite subject, the FDA.
Can we make one more comment on the pricing piece? I know beforehand.
Yeah, I have more comments on the pricing piece for sure.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is, could companies actually send the media the price increases? And here's why. I'm not looking to publish your percentage of your price increase. It's not going to get me a lot of traffic. But what I do need is accurate pricing information when a cigar is reviewed. And I can't get that without having that. And it's like, I don't understand why this fear of it, of doing it. If you want me to say I'm not sign an NDA saying I'm not going to put up something that you increase price, but I'll do that. But if we could get that, that's my wish list number one on that. Number two is, as far as pricing goes, I think there's this is not really an issue. I think this Cuba thing has just set off this like chain reaction in the industry. And now then Davidoff's saying like, well, we're as good as Habanos, if not better. So why can't we charge this price of it? And now Olive is saying, well, why can't we put out a $300 cigar? Rocky Patel needs to put out a $100 cigar. And here's the thing that's kind of interesting about these higher price cigars. There's a market for it. Yeah. There's a market for these cigars, which I think is a different market than we all deal with. I think it's that Rob Report luxury market. And until that market dries up, I think these cigars will continue to sell.
So, that's kind of where I was going, Coop, is number one, I don't think that market's going to dry up ever. I think the luxury goods market is been largely untouched by the cigar industry. And some of that could be brands undervaluing themselves or maybe not recognizing what the potential luxury market is at the high end. And I will say that, look, if Oliva decides to put out a $300 cigar or Rocky decides to put out a $100 cigar, I don't actually see that as a bad thing because it doesn't really harm anyone. You know what I mean? Like if somebody puts out a cigar that I personally can't afford or don't want to spend the money on, nothing is lost. I still have plenty of cigars that are priced in my value category that I will buy. And so, my question really is, because Oliva was the first thing to broach the $300 mark, it'll be really interesting, I think, this year to see, what is that upper boundary for 2024? Is that upper boundary $500? Is it $1,000? Do we see the first $1,000 cigar?
I think we do. From what I understand, Plasencia's got a $100 cigar coming out. I know.
There you go.
So, I mean, they're kind of getting in there. But don't forget they raised the price of the Oro Blanco when they make it. They don't make it all the time. It's now $600 for that cigar. That was the $500 one.
Right.
So, some of these Fuente cigars that you see go to like LE Blue and all that. Look at some of the prices of that. What was interesting is I thought La Union had decent pricing, like for what they're delivering, $60.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I think we're gonna get a pretty good cigar. I think we're gonna get some pretty good cigars for $60 there. But I'm not saying, but that's like a bargain compared to what I've seen with some of these other ones.
Yeah. All right, FDA. So Meta throws out the lawsuit, right? And the cigar industry is rejoicing. Great time for the cigar industry, yeah.
They always have to party. Yep.
So what do you see? Is it this? I mean, this is definitely a good thing for the cigar industry, right? I think this was like one of the better wins. Probably something that maybe not a lot of people were expecting to actually occur. Would you agree on that?
Yeah.
We knew about the win in 2022. We just didn't know that whether he was going to throw out the rules or not, and he surprised
Right.
everyone that did.
Yeah.
We don't know much about this appeal yet.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't know what the grounds of the appeal on. We don't know if the FDA is going to try to get a stay and try to an injunction and try to overturn that temporarily. We don't know that yet. So this is going to be a learning mode for a lot of us in dealing with appeals justice, which is a whole different animal than court justice. So I'm sure Charlie's working overtime on that, which is good. I mean, obviously it's good that someone's looking at that. I think we came out of this, the industry was more divided. I think that's a fair comment,
Sure.
right? Everyone was claiming victory coming out of this thing, right? They were all claiming different victories here. CRA, PCA, and CAA all puts out separate, not even a joint press release. So, and I think that's what I think the FDA is seeing that, and that's why I'm a little nervous right now. The FDA knows they see the industry divide, and they're going to go after other things in this year. We can get into that, and I think unfortunately our industry is ignoring some of these other things, and other things they are focused on.
So, I mean, I did go on record as saying I did think that he was going to vacate the ruling, and that was only because he was quite clear in his original comments, Judge Mehta, that if the FDA did not come back with new evidence, he warned them very clearly. He said, if you do not come back with new evidence, I am going to vacate your ruling. And I looked at that and I said, well, the FDA hasn't been able to come up with anything to this point, so I don't see them at the 11th hour coming back with some really engaging argument that's going to make their case. What I think did surprise me, and I was wrong on, was I didn't think the FDA was going to file an appeal, and you were right on that, Coop. You said, well, of course they're going to file an appeal. They almost have to, and that did catch me off guard. But, I see the whole thing is, I mean, it's a victory of sorts, but I don't see it as a victory because, I come from the Canadian side of just everything is just a stalling action. You're just kind of trying to hold them back. Your finger is in the dam and you're just trying to hold them back for as long as possible and fight them on every single legislative front that they're trying to put forward to just make it last as long as possible because, I just don't see any kind of true victory. It's not like you're going to dissolve the FDA. It's not like they're going to stop coming for tobacco. It's not like they're going to stop coming for cigars. And I think the next topic kind of leads into that a little bit, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, in a minute.
I think you can still, I disagree with you a little bit, John. I think you can still call it a victory because it is a victory, right? So and I'm not disagreeing with you because government is just like a giant amoeba that just keeps slowly moving and taking away your freedoms constantly. So
it's a gelatinous cube.
Yeah, exactly. You're 100% right about that. But at the same time, that's obviously a victory because that at least quelled it for there. I don't think that they're going to have very good luck with the appeal just based on the way that they vacated the ruling. I think it'd be very, very hard for them to win that appeal, but it doesn't matter because they'll start with some other thing that we'll have to fight.
Right.
It's a constant battle, like you said, but you got to take your victories when you get them. Like you're crazy if you don't, because if you don't, you just live a depressed life, And so it's just like just like gun control or any other thing. You got to kind of take your victories when you get them, be happy with it, and just be ready for the next onslaught?
You know, I go back again with the division of the associations. And Bear and I were interviewing Mike Copperman, who's the new CRA director. And I'm not going to get into the legal precedents here, but there's something that CRA is very high on called the Chevron doctrine, right? And basically, the ruling of the Chevron doctrine has to do with basically part of it determines if a statute's clear or ambiguous, right? And CRA is under the impression that they were promoting this like on the show, and then they put out a press release saying how this is this is key for the cigar industry. And PCA has been more quiet on this, which is kind of why would they be very quiet on this? I almost kind of feel they're not on the same page with stuff like this, right? And that's what's kind of like I said, that's why this appeal has got me more nervous than you think. You know, as far as this, I'm just not overly confident right now, especially if this Chevron document just changes everything right now in terms of what Meta did. So I think it's something we have to just keep an eye on.
Sure.
And Jay, if you're in the correct me on any of that, what I said.
All right. So kind of sticking in the same vein is flavor bans. And we've seen those kind of continue, like Eric was alluding to, the kind of that amoeba that's kind of spreading itself out and, absorbing what it can. That seems to be continuing. And California fell victim, and I think as more states do, it's going to make it a bit tougher on some of these cigar companies that kind of play in that space, and where it's a moneymaker for them, and actually, kind of fund some of the non-traditional, that non-traditional kind of fund some of the traditional style
Sure.
blends. How do you see that kind of shaking out, in this past year?
Yeah, and I think it was a little concerning because the White House issued a statement. I can't remember when, but it was a very strong statement in support of flavor bans and removing flavored tobacco. And that's always kind of a little alarming when you see a statement from the White House. The FDA has obviously been very clear on their stance that they're openly coming after flavored tobacco of all kinds. I would say, the only thing that kind of maybe works in the favor of the cigar industry, which is a really small industry in the total scheme of tobacco, is that I think their inclusion of menthol, which is an enormous moneymaker for big tobacco, helps us in a sort of sideways, because now you get big tobacco involved, and big tobacco has very, very deep purses when it comes to lawyer fees and retainers, and they can bring a lot more resources to bear. So it's kind of one of those things of their inclusion of menthol in the overreaching tobacco kind of means that there's going to be a lot more resources brought to bear in fighting that legislation. Because I think if the cigar industry is being targeted on its own, as California showed, it doesn't take very much to sort of knock off flavored cigars or infused cigars in the market and just take them out with really a stroke of a pen, and you can't do anything about it.
The one thing that I think, and I don't know what the White House is going to do on this, right? But I know what's driving a lot of this is this initiative called Cancer Moonshot, which they're basically trying to say they're going to reduce the death rate of cancer by 50% over the next 25 years. And you have the FDA going into Biden administration's ear saying, hey, here's your low-hanging fruit. Go right after tobacco, and you'll be able to get those goals. And unfortunately, we're a small part of this, right? We're a small part of the tobacco industry, and I'm not going to debate the cancer things about cigars. I'm just going to say the perception's there that cigars are bad, right? So, and what's the low-hanging fruit of who's getting access to this? The flavored stuff, right? That's kind of what's scaring me a lot on what the Biden administration is going to do on this right now. The big question is, do they do it this year in an election year or not? That I think is what this is going to come down to. And we'll know, I guess, in a month. And in fact, I think this decision is supposed to come right around the trade show.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of interesting when that happens. I think they said
Yeah, I want to say it's due April 1st. So I'd be surprised if we didn't see some sort of announcement or some sort of update before April 1st.
Yeah. Yeah. But you got FDA's whispering in their ear, 30% of cancer deaths are coming from smoking. They have no science behind it, but that's what they're going to do. So I am kind of very, very worried about this one right now. But it's going to go to court. The next thing is it will definitely go to the courts. So, I think whether they injunct it or not will be something we'll see. But I think the courts are going to be our course of action here with this.
But yeah, to your point, Coop, I think we'll be talking a lot more, I think, about flavor bans and flavor ban legislation than we will about the FDA appeal process, because I think that's really where the FDA is kind of pivoted as the amoeba looks for new cracks in the industry. They've obviously made it clear that they're shifting their focus and their energy into flavor. So I think that's going to be kind of the focus of the next 12 to 18 months.
Yep. And I keep saying it, and everyone's not media and advertising. They're going to go after. And if you think they're not going after media and advertising, I'm telling you, and all these cigar companies, forget us. Like, we'll be shut down. Like, if they put age verification in, like, I was talking about like what they did in North Carolina with adult websites, putting age verification. The age verification is not just checking a box. It is like submitting information. Like, do you imagine if they had to go to developing palates and you had to prove that you're over the age 20? People are going to stop going there. And what about all these cigar industry TikTok videos and Facebook reels that they love to do? They'll be gone. Like, if you think that if the industry needs to pay much more attention to it than they are right now, and they're not getting ahead of this one. They're getting behind on this one, and I think it's going to hurt us.
All right, let's move along out of the government stuff. NFTs. So we saw the Tatuai Anarchy NFT with Smoke In go live this year. I'm lost on the timeline. Did we have any others earlier in the year, or this was the kind of the lone one for the year?
I thought Castagli did one, but I don't know what happened with that one.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that's the only other one I could think of from last year.
Right. What were your guys' thoughts on how the Anarchy went off this year in regards to the auctions and kind of the buzz around it?
It was huge, right? It was a big success, man.
It seemed like a huge success.
I didn't expect it to go. I mean, I expected it to go great, but I didn't expect it to go as good as it went. Like some of those hitting like 100,000, I think, right? Like,
yeah, I think that was the highest one that any of them have seen so far, right? So
yeah, so good for them. They did it right. It was obviously hit all the points that those kind of guys that are into that are into. So, and I know that Abe said that they did get some good advice from the LFD guys that kind of helped them sort through some of that. And they nailed it out of the ballpark, man. So that was great. Yeah, Atabey has one too, right? Like,
the black.
That was
like
is that like the first one? I don't know.
That was the first one. That was a true NFT offering.
Yeah,
that was a pure NFT. Yeah,
it kind of falls into the same category that John said earlier about really expensive cigars. You don't have to be involved in this, and it doesn't affect you in any kind of way. If you're not into it, you don't need to be against NFTs. You're not gonna buy that. So fine, that's fine. But there are people that are into that, and I think it's pretty cool. I think the cool thing about the NFTs nowadays is it's got a function, and that function sort of allowing like a retailer to have the rights to sell that cigar. That's a cool thing. Like I dig it. Am I gonna bid 100,000? Of course not. But so what? Like, it's still a pretty cool thing. I'm for it.
I think it goes to show as well, because I'm sure some people were like, certainly going in, it becomes a bit of a measuring contest. You're like, how, if it sells, how much does it sell for? And I think it really shows the strength of Tatuai as a brand that, there was a lot of activity around it and the prices exceeded what I think a lot of people were expecting. I think the real question is, what is the future of NFTs? What other brands out there have the capability of doing an NFT at that level? Because from my perspective, I haven't really seen a lot of buzz around another brand, even a medium-sized company doing NFTs. It's kind of dried up, I think, a little bit. Coop?
Yeah, you go to the Abe credit. Abe saw the opportunity with this, but he also, the one thing I think he was a little ahead of LFD with, and LFD is starting to play catch up with this now, is because LFD understands this as well. It's that market I talked about. They're trying to target a market again, not the people who are smoking the everyday cigars. And I think they're doing a very good job with that. And LFD, I think I'm seeing that more and more. They're doing better with that. And I think that's going to be the way you have to to do this right now. Is to target, do true luxury cigar items and go with that route. I don't know if we're going to see another NFT auction. Aaron, we interviewed Christian Aroa, and you remember he kind of said the Sensorium was supposed to be an NFT cigar.
Right. Yeah.
And he kind of when he saw that LFD did it, he just didn't want to be that's what he said to us, at least.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be the imitator of that. So it kind of like, I don't know what the future of that project is. He released the cigar, obviously, but it's kind of but I think like I said, I was kind of just questioning who's going to buy these cigars. And then when I saw what Abe did, I said, well, you know what? It's that Rob Report market they're going to go after. And they're doing a lot of things to kind of create that interest. Again, it's not the people who, the Joe Six-Pack people are not going to go after these cigars. It's just, there's plenty of other stuff for them, but this is going to be a targeted thing. And I think it's not bad for the industry by any means. Supply and
No,
demand.
it gets people excited about
Yeah.
a release and things like that.
Yeah, I really like what LFD really dressed up. They improved the packaging a lot on that. And well, I'm going to talk to John's coming on with Bear and I tomorrow.
Mhm.
So we're going to talk to John about this. And he's talked, I think I'm really curious to see where they're going to head with this. But I think that's the direction for projects like that. And you're just going to have an item that you can put into the market like that.
Yeah, and my kind of perception is it's tough to kind of get a feel for, how these would work out for people once they buy them, because obviously if you're a retailer bidding, your goal is going to be to sell the cigars, from whatever allotment that you're getting and be able to do that. So, you're kind of you're buying in with a bit of an unknown on the back end of, how they'll sell and things of that nature. So I think there's kind of been some struggles, like when the LFD one came and how they were people were putting packages together on how you could buy them and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You just don't really know how successful the retailers were in regards to that to really see. So that's why I was curious when the Tatuaje win went, how many people were going to be retailers that bought in versus, private collectors that bought in, because, seeing how the LFD one went, did people were maybe a little gun shy about how they were going to be able to sell the cigars. But it seems like with the Tatuaje one, the retailers kind of got together a bit to kind of like try to figure out a plan together. I'm not sure how that's going along. So it's hard to, people are not super transparent in how their sales go, especially retailers. So I just feel like if these continue, there's going to be a point where it's the last one, right? I just don't see it as being an upward trend. Like NFTs are going to ramp up. I feel like we're not seeing enough sizzle, and at some point, like somebody's going to buy in, and then it's going to be like they're stuck with something they can't really offload. So I don't know if we're at that point, and maybe it's probably better to like have a successful one, and then people just say like, let's just say we did it well, and maybe we'll try it again in another point. But yeah, that's just kind of how I see it. I don't know. I don't know that this is going to be a ongoing trend in the industry or not. So
I agree.
all right. I want to talk about a couple of brands and factories that they are planning planning in Nicaragua. And the first one is Fuente. We've been told that they're going to be invading Nicaragua, right? So, and this is kind of a interesting thing because Felix Mesa left, and he was supposed to be the guy that was getting that all going. Coop, do you know anything more about kind of where that's at in the process?
Last year, I saw the bulldozers starting to break the ground on that. And that was down at Puro Sabor. I don't know how much further they're on that. It's not a conversation I've had with Carlito, so it's probably something I could ask him, and he'll tell me straight on it, I'm sure. Right. So I don't think, my guess is to get the factory to Carlito's toy factory, right, level.
Right.
Even if they broke ground, you're talking 3 years because there's so much work that's going to have to go in there. So I was convinced we wouldn't see anything till 2026 with that one. Just because I said it's not just putting up the building, and if you go see the factory in the Dominican, you'll understand what I'm talking about. It is a theme. It is the Willy Wonka factory in the Dominican. So I imagine Nicaragua is going to be the same thing with that. But there's companies buying farms down in Nicaragua now too. Fuentes bought some farms. We know we know they got some farms. I'm sure there's other Davidoff they bought some farms too. So it's kind of interesting with that. So yeah, I don't have much more of an update on that, unfortunately.
And
Yeah,
Eric,
I
I
mean,
don't have a good handle on you. Are you much of a Fuente smoker?
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
love Fuentes. I gotta say, what I think the thing that's going to be the most curious to me is, Esteli is not a big town. There's a limited
no.
amount of people there, and yeah, they've got, you know, you can start a small factory there pretty easily, like we saw Rainier do, and I'm sure you could get like 8 pairs of rollers and stuff. But like, how is this going to affect that? How is this going to affect the workforce when there's two huge, brand new, like major top end, factories as in Fuente and Rocky? Like, how will that affect the labor force down there? It'll be
Yeah.
curious to see because we're not talking about Managua with 1 million+ people. We're talking about
Yeah.
Esteli with, I don't know. I'm not even sure how many people live in Esteli. But that'll be interesting to see if that affects some of the smaller brands, like even some of the medium factories down there. Will they lose some of their better people? We'll see. It'll be interesting.
Rocky needed a new facility. I've been to Tavacusa. It's way too small for what he's looking to do.
Hmm.
So he needed a new factory. There's no question about it. My question is he going to move stuff out of Honduras down to this factory? That's because I had some people on the ground telling me, like, feeding me information on this during the week, because it's impossible to get hold of Rocky in the States, let alone Nicaragua. So there's questions I'm going to try to ask Rocky on that. But I think all the points you bring up are valid. The difference is, I think Rocky needs the factory probably more than Fuente does in this case. I think he's outgrown Tavacusa. I was at Tavacusa in 2015 and he was outgrown it. So this is a long time coming, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing about Carlito, because I think I've told you this story, Coop, is that I happened to be one of my semi-annual annual trips down to Nicaragua, and I think it was 2016, and we were at the Camino Real in Managua, and I looked over my shoulder and I saw Carlito. I mean, it was Carlito, but I saw Carlito walk by, and I was like, "Is that Carlito?" And I was with Trip at the time, and Trip's like, "I'm pretty sure that was Carlito," but I didn't want to be screaming at some random person
Hey,
in the hotel. Hey,
Carlito!
Carlito! Some gringo yelling at you could be probably a little alarming. But I think when you look back at the timeline, I believe, if I understood the timeline correctly, that was sort of the starting point of him looking at properties and sort of starting that process. So if you think back, like that's 8 years now. It's a very long process, especially for a facility of that size, to look at potential property, close an actual real estate deal, get all the construction and equipment and everything that's required. It's not as easy as just buying a factory and starting up operations in a year. It's a very long process, and it is the timing for Carlito makes sense because he's been working at it for a while. But the Tavacusa thing is interesting because last year the big commentary from the industry was, listen, everyone's having labor shortages. Everyone's really struggling to retain. We heard a number of factories say, they had literally an entire generational changeover where
Yeah.
the average age of the rollers was kind of in the late 30s, early 40s, and a bunch of people left and a bunch of people retired. And a number of factories are saying, look, our average age went from 44 to 22, and that's a huge shift. So to Eric's point, you kind of wonder, like, do they have enough people to staff for 300 pair or 500 pair or whatever might be required to operate a factory of that size? And what is the impact to labor forces in Esteli when that opens? And that'll probably be an interesting story to watch over the next couple of years as they break ground and really sort of start the lion's share of that construction.
I was a little surprised that Rocky actually is putting the factory in Esteli.
Hmm.
Because I go back to what AJ did. He put the factory up in Ocotel, which is about an
Right.
hour north. And Eric and I have been there. It's way out there. And part of the reason why they put it in Ocotel was to address the labor problems and
Yeah.
people kind of like being disloyal, and they're trying to tap into the labor force further north. So I was still a little surprised and maybe it's logistically it made sense for Rocky to have it down there. But I was still a little surprised. Because there's probably a lot of places they could have put that factory.
Plus, I think one of AJ's, things that he wanted to do was I want to have people trained, my way. So like
Yep.
I have this sort of like
Yeah.
this
And they don't
area,
bolt.
this
Yeah.
area that's kind of my own.
Yep.
And
They
that's
don't bolt to someone else and take
yeah.
those skills. Yeah.
really worked out well.
Yeah.
I think my biggest thing about Fuente in Nicaragua is just that, like, what cigars are going to come out of there, and what are those cigars going to be like for such a Dominican brand, right?
Right.
And then you have a Nicaraguan factory, and I'm assuming it's going to be predominantly Nicaraguan tobacco, because I don't know if they're going to be shipping a bunch of Dominican tobacco over there and how much they have to be able to do that. But I just don't know. I'd be curious to see what that's like, because I think it would just be such a different thing for the brand. So
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think, they have the farms in Nicaragua already, and I think they're already sending tobacco to the Dominican because they do put
Yep.
Nicaraguan in the blends. But
Sure.
but I think it opens up new opportunity for Fuente to do some different things. I just wouldn't expect it all overnight to be. And I don't know how they're going to ramp up the production in that factory. I imagine it'll be small to start. But
Right.
I think it does open Fuente up for a new generation of Fuente type cigars, which is I think going to be. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that is a great point.
Yeah.
All right, let's move over to the consensus. And this is the list that kind of consolidates all the lists that come out at the end of the year and kind of tallies their weights and kind of says what all of them, if they were combined, kind of how everything stacked up. I'm curious as to your guys' thoughts and the results of the list this year, and just kind of your thoughts on the state of this list and what it does and what it doesn't do. So anybody that wants to jump in, feel free.
I got to be honest with you. I don't really pay attention to this list. So I don't have a whole lot to say on it.
Okay.
I know a lot of people get into it, and that's great. I love that. So, but I really, I didn't even look at it. I know Steve got like 1 and 2 because he posted it on Facebook. But other than that,
Right.
I have zero idea anything about it.
All right. So the two guys that have the most to say are the quietest ones here.
Oh,
So.
Before Coop goes, I'll just say I appreciate that it's a largely thankless job that Charlie does. He does it all on his own. To be frank, he doesn't really get a lot of help. You would think that a lot of YouTubers and maybe smaller media brands would be excited about helping him out with the process, but they, from what I can tell, they really don't. He spends a lot of time scraping lists, trying to dig through websites to find the information, and it's a thankless task. I think for me personally, as a viewer, as a consumer of the content, I've kind of paid less attention to it over the years because I feel like the intent of different media can't be combined into and I'm a data analyst. I mean, that's what I do. That's my job. So, I'm a data guy. That's where I come from. And the big problem I've always had is that you're taking different media brands that have different intent of what they're trying to do, whether it's an influencer or whether it's someone who does YouTube content or whether it's a more traditional website-based review sites like really all of us. And I think that content can't necessarily be amalgamated in a way that is cohesive. And so I think for me, what ends up happening is you have these massive outliers of either brands or cigars that aren't necessarily relevant to me, but maybe they're relevant to the people that are consuming the list. And so my issue has always been, or at least for the last few years, has been, I'm looking to see what my peers, who are kind of the people on this list, the people on this show right now, and certainly some of the other website brands, to say, what are they smoking? What did I miss this year that we should have reviewed? And what brand has kind of popped this year that maybe hasn't popped in the year before? And I don't really get that anymore because I feel like the way in which the different brands are represented, it ends up being muddled for me. But that, again, that's just me as a media consumer. Other people might get different things from the list. So. Coop?
So we've had this love-hate relationship with the consensus. And I was kind of one of the Joe Grow guys, and Aaron and I used to do a lot of consensus talk on prime time. We've pretty much stopped it. I'm in kind of the mode right now. But let me just kind of before I even say that, I agree with you. Charlie does a lot of hard work on this. I consider him a friend of the show. But I think he's proved his point with the consensus already. That he's basically trying to show relationships with manufacturers. And there's been things in the last few years that have just made me say, is this any value anymore to the industry? All right. So a few examples. Number one was, remember Year of the Rat, like made top 5 in the consensus. It was a cigar that most people could not get because it was an event cigar, but it landed because it was sent out to the media, like
Right.
like with humidors and stuff like that, right? So obviously, there's ways you can win the consensus. The
You guys
year
are getting
after,
humidors?
yeah, right. The year after is probably the most egregious sin that I saw was the unreleased cigar. Paladin de Saka. Again, there's a cigar that wasn't the only reason why it was reviewed is because pre-releases were sent out to the media, and the media just doesn't have guidelines. Most of the media doesn't have guidelines that all the people on this call have, right? So this cigar was out there, and then this year, when I saw one list included that the guy forgot to put one of the cigars on the list, his top 25. Like, why are we including this data? What is the value anymore of this? And I think Charlie's shown at this point the relationship. I think he's proven that already, and I just don't think the consensus is delivering value anymore at this point. Um, anymore. And and I've been approached by a couple of people. I'm not saying a ton of people have approached me. Like, why don't I do the consensus? One is it's Charlie's thing. I want to respect him on that. And two is if I did it, I'd be excluding probably 3/4 of the list, and I would be accused of being, biased, like against my competition. So I would never take that on. But I don't know. I looked at some of these cigars even this year, and I just scratched my head. And are these cigars that are even moving at stores? I don't know. I just really didn't see, you know, I didn't see like any value of these things. Like, Lavaredo was a number 7 cigar,
Yeah.
which surprised me.
Everybody on the panel pretty much
I
said
don't,
no,
but I
no
don't
go.
know. But is that cigar like become a wildly big hit for Crown Heads? Being a top 10 on all these lists. El Popo is another one. That one completely came out of left field with a lot of us. We saw it might happen based on the Joe Grow data because Joe Grow was like tracking this stuff. So I think we weren't surprised, but we would have been totally surprised had it come out there. I don't know. I'm not seeing it anymore. I think, but again, it's Charlie's project. It's his list. He could do what he wants with it. I think the opportunity is there to do something more with it, and but it's his call on that. I want to respect him on that too.
Yeah, to your point, Coop, I think, both industry people and media people, for the most part, understand that if you want your cigar to show up on the list, send samples out to 6 or 8 media brands. It obviously helps if your cigar is good, but for the most part, if you send out samples, there's a very good chance that your cigar is going to show up on the list. And I think that relationship has been understood for a long time, which is why, a lot of media brands have kind of moved away from reviewing samples and in a way of sort of distancing from that thing. So maybe you could say in a way it's influenced us to say maybe we need to distance ourselves from that and say we're not reviewing samples anymore because there's a bit of a bias there where if we're being sent cigars, we review cigars, maybe that influences their ability to show up on our top 25, which influences them showing up with a consensus. And there's a factor there for sure. So yeah, I think that relationship has been proven beyond a doubt for sure. I don't know where the consensus is going to go next year. I mean, I can't believe that Charlie puts in the amount of work that he does. I mean,
Yeah,
kudos to him for sure, but
absolutely.
I would not do it. It's too much work.
There was a cigar that showed up on. There were a couple of cigars that showed up in the top 10 that surprised me. Lavaredo was one of them because no samples were sent out of that, as far as I know.
That's true. Yeah.
Long live the Queen. There's not a worse company that deals with the media than Caldwell. They're one of the worst companies to deal with the media, right? No samples was that. You can't even get information on this cigar. I couldn't get information at a trade show on this cigar because it was supposedly an exclusive to CA, but it did land number 5 on the consensus. So I know the samples play a role in this, but there are cigars that there's no samples sent out that land on the list with no relationship. I mean, some of the
Right.
others, Huber has always had his fans in the media. So I can see that one, but Caldwell, no, Caldwell's just not been good with the media at all. But kudos to Caldwell for getting on there. So, um, yeah, I mean, it was kind of like I said, but there was nothing in it. I said, and Charlie, one thing that Charlie says is he says he does not feel these are the best 25 cigars, and he's very,
Right.
very open on that. So, and I respect that on it as well. Um, so, uh,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
other, yeah, go ahead, Myron.
when I look at it, I see the list and you're like, okay, and then you can see what the sites are that the data is being pulled from, and then he shares the sheet that kind of shows the tallying, so
Yeah,
you can see all the cigars and where they ranked where on the different sites. That's what I find the most interesting, because these mix of sites have such varied like criteria of what qualifies, right? So some sites are, calendar year, some sites are just whatever cigar they smoked, could be, 15-year-old cigars, whatever it is. And then you look at it and you're like, if I just change this one number here, or I give this cigar an extra 5 points here, like how much it changes in the list. Like the spread is so far on the number of cigars that are on the list, it doesn't take many placements on a list to get you onto the consensus. So, we've kind of talked about it jokingly behind the scenes. Like you could start up five fake websites and put a cigar number one, and it's going to be number one on the consensus. Like
yeah.
it could be, this is an easily manipulated list if you want to do it. It's with the number of sites, it looks big, but it's a very small amount of data that's easily swayed by a number change here or there. So, I like you said, I don't know that it gives any good data. It's great for social media, absolutely great for the brands that place up there. They can share that as though it means something. I don't think it really means anything. So,
Yeah. Aaron, to your
usually when you
point,
crowdsource anything, it just doesn't give you very good data.
no, to your point, Aaron, like Murafel Richards, a great example. It landed 25. There were 3 lists that had that cigar. And I don't remember who the third one was, but it was Charlie had it number 1. I had it at number 3, which I believe is automatically 48 points. And I think someone else had it in the top 10.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Rob Report or one of them. And that was all it needed to land a spot on the consensus.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot.
It's 3.
So
Should a
spread
cigar
out.
be getting on with, you have 34 sites. Should a cigar with just 3 sites be driving? There's a lot of, like I said, it's Charlie's thing, but I just don't put a lot into what comes out on, like what's spit out last few years has just been, now I'll say this, Papa Saka, a lot of people really like that cigar. I know, Eric, you're a huge fan of that cigar. You guys had it high on the list. I mean,
It was our number 1 cigar.
yeah. I mean, Aaron, you guys had it, what was it, top 5, right?
Yep, top 5.
So, I mean, a lot of people, so this is not Steve did, I thought Papa Saka was getting rave reviews before Steve sent out that sample, by the way. I saw the reviews coming out of that. So I don't want to say Steve.
We loved it
Krakatoa
at the show. When we first.
Yeah,
started
I mean, at the show we were going crazy over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Krakatoa, I think, was absolutely driven from the sample sent out. That one,
Well,
I'll
yeah,
say
because the cigar only released what,
like
a
October.
month before the cutoff or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Arnold Quester, I just did a review. It's like an 89 scored cigar, but they sent boxes out of that cigar in November. So it landed on a lot of lists. COM is a 4. That's a cigar they always send out to the media. So.
All right, let's move along. So I kind of asked the question in regards to cigar construction, this year compared to the previous years, but let's just talk about overall enjoyment of cigars.
Wait, hold on. Because you on here, we're going to talk just about lists in general. And
did I have something about the list in general?
Thoughts of the list results.
Oh, that was just consensus.
Thoughts on list results. I just have
okay.
one
Absolutely.
I have one comment on that, and I can't give you guys the details, but
Ooh,
this Friday
news.
night on Smoke Night Live, we're gonna do something that's never been done before. Just preparing you. I can't give you the details quite yet.
Are you going to smoke all 25 cigars on the show?
Maybe we'll
That'd
see.
be cool.
we
the same
we are going
I-
to we're going to tackle the year-end list debate a little bit, and
Nice.
it's going to be fun. We'll have details in the next day or two. It's going to be a ton of work, but it's not the consensus, not like that.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, Coop, you'll be involved for sure.
I think I may know where you're going with this
should be
because
interesting.
there was a little last week. Yeah, I think I know where you're going with this. I don't know. You haven't told me any details, but
No.
just make sure you have receipts for everything, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's all, Aaron. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Teaser.
Yeah, teaser.
So overall cigar enjoyment 2023 versus 2022. Do you think that the cigars that were released in 2023 were better, even, or worse than what you smoked in 2022? Anybody can jump in.
Plethora of things to say here, so I don't
right,
I
go
don't
for it.
necessarily want to go first and take up all the airtime, but
Go for it.
I will
Doesn't matter.
say, I'll say, John, I'll start. I'll say, I think 2023 was better. Like I feel like our top 6 cigars, I know that there's at least 4 of them could have been number ones in any other year. Like that, it was a good year at the top. So I think it was a great year personally.
Never a better year?
I don't know if I can
Never
say
a better year
that.
for cigars?
No, I don't know if I can
It's
say
not
that.
bad.
I'm just
Okay.
saying compared to 2022, which is what Aaron asked. I think
Yeah.
I'd probably pick 2023.
All right, Coop.
I'm still, like I said, going through 2023 with a lot of my list had 2022 on it. Which, oh, by the way, Halfway had a lot of 2020. They kind of use a similar model. So what I'm seeing right now, it's probably the same. Last year I think my average score was 88.59. I don't see that number moving up or down a lot. But I think it will come in around the same. And the end of January is already 1/4 of the year reviewed because I start November 1st. So what I've seen out of that first quarter is about the same.
All right, John, your time is now.
all right. I don't want to take thunder away from the year in review by numbers because I really like that post and I really like when we reveal the data. So I won't get too far into that, but I will say, data wise, there's no question that for developing palates, as we scored, the average score is higher for 2023. And I would say that to Eric's point, the top end of that list that we did this year are definitely good cigars, good to very good cigars. There's no question that they stand out and they would compete very well against previous year's releases. But I have to also self-reflect and say there's a large asterisk element to selection bias, and we're as guilty of that as anybody else, perhaps even more because as we do this year over year, we get maybe a little more educated, but also a little bit more cynical. And so, when we go through because we've kind of set our hard limit at 100. We can only physically do 100 cigars and still be married happily. We can only devote so much time. So there's brands and blends and releases that are going to release that we're not going to get around to because we just can't. And we'd love to, but we can't. So within that, there is this inherent selection bias where we say, this brand has done well in the past. And so as a result, this is something that we're going to probably prioritize more than a different brand that maybe hasn't performed well in the past. And I think there's a really good example, since I'm representing developing palates, I can throw us under the bus and say, we missed the boat a little bit this year on Johnny Tobacconaut because Johnny Tobacconaut did really well for Coop. I think it did well for Cigar Dojo. I've heard lots of people saying good things. And we kind of took a bit of a flyer on that because, we kind of had established our list of cigars we were going to review. And that was one where we said, we really can't fit it into our portfolio. So, I think when we look and say, is it the best list of cigars? I could say, well, it's the best list of cigars that we selected to review. But if we reviewed all the cigars that were released in the year, that might be a different story. You know what I mean? So I'm of two minds where I say the top cigars were no question really good cigars. But I do wonder if we had the ability to review 200 cigars or 300 cigars, would the average score have gone down because maybe when you look at the whole market and what's being released, maybe it's not up from year over year. Maybe it's about the same as it was last year, which is about the same as the year before. And so it's really tough from a data analytics perspective to really be objective about that, because I really can't ignore the fact that, we reviewed 4 Black Label cigars, or we reviewed, 3 Tatuajes. That is an outlier. We're kind of giving that opportunity to a proven brand that probably is going to put out good stuff. So, scoring is up, but there's a little bias there for sure.
The selection bias is a key thing, John. And I'm not gonna lie, there is a lot of look, it is a subjective thing we're doing.
For sure.
At the same time, there's a business aspect. We have to make sure we're getting traffic, right? Because we
Of
don't get
course.
traffic. So when I look at most of the traffic, they come from 6 brands on Cigar Coop: Tobacco USA, Davidoff, Drew Estate, STG, Rocky Patel, and Fuente. That's getting the most traffic. So what I will say is there's a lot of good cigars coming out of all those companies. So the question is, am I going too heavy with them versus some of the other companies? And that's where we really have to be. We have to be really the selection. It's tough. It's tough. I mean, we're all pretty small operations. We only can do so much. And we're probably missing some, like you just mentioned. Johnny Tobacco is a good example of that, right? Something that was missed. So that's why I also went to the 2-year rule with the list, because if I see some stuff that maybe I didn't get to review, then it's something I could kind of go back in and say, all right, it's still eligible. I can give it another shot with that. So that was put in to solve that particular problem.
And I will also say that 2023 was a better year than 2022. I'm usually the one that's negative on that and always going downward in the trend, but definitely a bump up. And I think maybe just how things have worked out coming out of the COVID lockdowns and things of that nature, that just we've seen a little bit of an uptick in that. I'm hopeful that that's the trajectory it stays on. I would always love to see better cigars, so hopefully we kind of can keep moving that along. I have my doubts, but we'll see how this year shakes out and kind of go from there. So
yeah, it was, like I said, it's a subjective it should be a subjective exercise. And the idea is our job is to try to find what those cigars are, and how good a job we do is really up to how our audience perceives that.
Yep.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right. Any other 2023 topics that we want to breach? Otherwise, we can start doing a little bit of 2024 look ahead. All right.
Yeah.
We already talked about FDA kind of in the forward-looking zone, so I think we'll kind of skip that unless anybody else has something they want to bring up on for 2024. But I think the big topic, none of us are going to TPE. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I'm not going to really bring that up because none of us will really be able to say whether or not it's better or not.
Can I ask a question on that though?
Sure.
We are all getting the information on the TPE releases.
Yes.
Have you seen, like last year? I thought it was a better year for TPE releases.
Right.
And it's been a little late, but I don't think this has been a terrible year for cigars that are going to debut at the TPE. I mean, for example,
I think it's maybe the best year that cigars have debuted at the TPE.
The 4 Altadis cigars are all compelling to me this year. Like they were just like, wow, look at those cigars that came out. As far as that goes, Crown Heads has a new, Mil Diaz coming out.
Yep.
Which is driving a lot of excitement.
Yeah. I just saw a new Jake Wyatt cigar. Hit my email today. I think it's a fire cured cigar they're doing. So small company, but yet, you know what? It's better than me seeing like the mixed filler Cuban sandwich or sampler packs out there. Bundles. Yeah, it's been a little more compelling with that this year, I think. So, which is good. It's not like, unfortunately, it's just the timing wise, I could not do TPE this year. It just there's too much, and something had to give. And there were a couple things had to give, and that was, I know we're going to get into that a little with the trade show. So,
yep. So talking about PCA then, a big difference this year, obviously, because the date changed. Now you're doing end of March instead of July. Still in Vegas, but at the convention center rather than at the Sands. just kind of overall thoughts from you guys on what you expect from this year with all those changes in place. So close to TPE, all the other festivals and stuff going on, just a packed first quarter. What do you guys foresee for the PCA trade show this year?
I'll kick it off. I think it's gonna be business as usual. I think you're gonna see as many releases. I think we're gonna go crazy with press releases late February, early March. The difference is I think the releases we may not see for 6 to 8 months, but I still think you're gonna see companies go into that trade show. I just think it will still be business as usual with that. There are companies going to introduce new lines, but like I said, we probably won't see those lines until late in the year. So you're gonna have to wait a little longer for it. And why wouldn't they do that? I mean, Habanos does that, so and they get interest in it. So why wouldn't these companies take the same approach? I'm sure they have had these marketing plans for a while, so they may not have samples for us of this stuff, but that's okay. So I think we're gonna see some good things. As far as the location, what I find interesting is remember when they moved it to the convention center a few years ago, and there was this big negative reaction to it. I'm not seeing the negative reaction this year. I think people are so happy that the trade show is moving up. And I think, like I said, I wasn't a fan of it, but you can't underestimate the impact it's had. Now it's PCA's job to put on a good trade show. They got rid of that last day. Now the question I have with that is it going to affect still the third day, right? Because I think it's a weekend show and people are going to go home. So I don't know if they've necessarily solved that problem of the trade show being dead in the final hours either. So I mean that's another one I would look at. But I know PCA's adding some. They added an awards ceremony. Originally I heard it was going to be Monday. Now I'm hearing it's going to be Sunday. I think PCA did a good job last year with the day, I guess you call it day zero, right? Stuff that they did. So we'll see how well they do with that this year. I had to hand roll. I think there's another hand roll coming out this year, so that should be pretty exciting. I don't know who they're getting for the blending seminar yet. Hopefully they get someone good. So I think it's gonna be business as usual for that. And we could talk about 2025 in a minute. That's a different story.
Do you want me to hop in?
Go with that.
All right. It's gonna be a mixed bag. I think there's a lot of excitement about the fact that three of the big four are going to be back. I don't think you can underscore the amount of energy that's going to bring from a positive perspective of having this sort of excitement, large festival type of atmosphere around the PCA. I think that's really good. There's a lot of people who wanted it moved up to March. Coop kind of alluded to. I don't think March is the ideal time frame. I mean, next year we'll get into that. I think is more the correct time frame, just from a timing perspective of the other festivals and other events that are going on at the first quarter. It's a very packed first quarter, and if you intend to attend Puro Sabor Pro Cigar or do any of the other festivals that tend to launch in the first quarter of the year, that timing becomes quite a bit of a struggle, and it's certainly the case for media to cover. If you're doing one of those other festivals, to turn around and then cover the PCA, you are scrambling a little bit. But we aren't really the reason for the trade show. Obviously, it's to do business. So I think attendance is going to be up. I don't believe. I'm going to go on record and say I don't think it's going to be a double-digit increase. I think it's going to be a modest increase. I think DP, we are a little cynical. We are going to be taking a look and watching and seeing, on day 2.5, like the second half of day 2, to keep an eye on, how many exhibitors are bailing on day 2 and how many exhibitors are bailing on day 3 because maybe they didn't have a good show, or, things happen. People need to leave the show, but it's always disappointing to see an exhibitor leave before the show is over. And I will say from a personal perspective, because people have been whinging so much about the temperature in July, I will be keeping receipts on the number of people that make audible complaints about the temperature in March. I will be making a tally to see how many people complain about the weather in March in Vegas and the smoking conditions thereof.
At night when these events are all outside.
That's right.
It gets freaking cold there. And I've been in
45
Vegas.
is great for me, but we're going to see about those Miami, Nicaraguan, Dominican boys and see how they feel about 45 degrees.
Could you picture Raphael outside smoking at 45 degrees? I know he's there. He's the guy who freeze like Frosty the Snowman. I mean, I'm worried about him with that.
He posted. I saw he posted on Facebook 55 degrees this morning. It's
No,
cold in Miami.
It's cold in Miami. No, look, it's not great to smoke. Look, I know
That's a
John.
warm
It's
spring
great.
day, my
I know it's
friend.
good for John, but maybe Eric. But I can tell you, I don't like smoking in 45-degree weather outside. And like I said, a lot of these events have moved outside. Keep in the mind the after hours events. So
Maybe the big swag item is don't be handing out shirts. You better have hoodies and toques or what do you call them in the States? Beanie
Beanies.
caps
Beanie
ready
cap,
to go.
yeah, scarves.
Because they're going to be a hot item, I think, this year.
Yeah, you're gonna see people. It's gonna be a surprise to people on that, but we'll see how and again, people aren't gonna have bar. I don't know. Bar Luca is not gonna be Bar Luca this year, so it's gonna be somewhere else. I don't know where that location is. I'm trying to figure out. I guess it's gonna be the resorts, which to me that's a pain in the ass to get in and out of. I'm glad we have the house because I don't have to deal with that. Remember when we went there one night and it was just like we had a park in like freaking Utah.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah,
yeah.
It's like flying into Denver. You think you fly into Denver, but you don't actually fly into Denver. You
Yeah,
fly
right.
into Utah, and then you drive into Denver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Where are we at? Mergers and acquisitions. Or Eric, did I skip you on the whole PC discussion?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's
wanna-
all right.
did you-
I would just my only comment is I actually love that it's at the convention center. You know, especially for us media guys, we can park there, we can have our stuff in the car, we can pop in, pop out. Like it's just and once you're in the convention center, it doesn't make any difference at all,
Yep.
anyways. So that just avoids the whole, walking through the casino for 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back and blah, blah, blah. You run into 12 people. It just takes forever. So I'm excited about it being in the convention center. I like it there. I prefer it there. I prefer the hot. I would like it to be 100 degrees all the time, every day for the rest of my life. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be fine in March.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like
Yeah.
brittle cold or anything like that. Plus
Well,
we do
we'll
like
see.
you guys. We stay in a house, so
Yeah.
I already got
Well-
a nice hot tub ready to roll. So
we got the fire pit. That was the key item for us
you know,
this year.
that's we got some so like
yeah.
that kind of stuff is it works out great. And
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Mergers and acquisitions. Do you see any significant ones in 2024?
I don't know what they would be, but I'm assuming that there'll be at least one or two that surprise us all.
So there's been, and I say this just because I know it makes Eric laugh every time I say it, but there's been discussions for more than a year now about Davidoff either selling or divesting, and this rumor just keeps circulating. And it's not my rumor; it's a rumor that just keeps circulating every year. Davidoff's going to sell, Davidoff's going to divest, and we haven't seen any rumors to sort of bolster that or support that in any way. Obviously Davidoff's not going to be attending the PCA this year. So that's, probably going to be a discussion point of, what are they doing? Are they intending to attend in 2025? I don't think there's going to be any major acquisitions. I think the major acquisitions have been completed. I think, maybe we're going to see some small boutique brands get gobbled up, but I don't think it's going to be as noteworthy as last year was. Certainly in terms of how much it's going to capture the media cycle.
I've only seen 4 major acquisitions in the last decade. And the 4 are Drew Estate, Oliva, Agio, and Alec Bradley. Anything else they were brand acquisitions, they were licensing agreements. But those, when I talk
Thompson?
about those, well, that's a retailer. Okay.
Yeah, that's an acquisition. Like
Okay.
there's-
Yeah. Okay. I'll edit my comment to manufacturers.
Okay.
They were all like when I say with those 4, those are ones where the companies were acquired lock, stock, and barrel. So all not just the inventory, the employees were integrated in there, physical facilities. So my guess is we're not going to have a major one this year. I've heard some rumors of a factory or 2 for sale, possibly. I'm not really putting a lot into that yet, but I have been hearing of a couple of factories that could be up for sale right now. That could be interesting, but they're not big factories, is what I'll say either. So, and they're more factories that focus specifically on manufacturing and don't have like big brands that they sell. So my guess is we may see another Room 101 type of thing, which I know people said it was a big acquisition. It really wasn't a big acquisition. Tarano really wasn't a big acquisition when you look at that. So um if it's any, now retailer, I don't know if I have anything on the. I've heard of one retailer possibly selling. So one big catalog place, and it's one that has been rumored to be sold for a while. I don't want to, I don't want to put misinformation out there, but you guys could read between the lines and figure that one out.
Start with an F.
Yes, maybe,
All right.
maybe.
All right. Let's go back to Ecuador. So with the tobacco issues there, political issues going on, do we see that this is going to be a big deal because we talked about how much Ecuadorian tobacco is being used for especially for wrappers in this past year? Do we see that this is a major effect on brands going forward?
Not for the big companies, but for the smaller ones, yes. And I do see that as a potential issue right now. I think the big ones have been securing their tobacco, and they've been much better probably prepared for this. The smaller ones are going to struggle a bit. All these Sumatra blends right now, what's going to, are people going to be able to get, if they have enough tobacco, then it's not an issue, but there's a lot of companies that don't have enough tobacco. So what's happening is you're seeing some of the other countries now pick up the slack for wrapper. What I've been told basically is when that slack gets picked up, it's going to affect binder and filler. I'm worried about the quality of some of that stuff. Will things that will maybe binder now suddenly become wrapper quality, So I do think it's going to affect it quite a bit. I'm very worried about the shade market right now because Ecuador really has the hold on the shade market big time. So, but like I said, the big companies have their shade and they're going to get through this. It's the smaller ones which are going to be the problem. So I think like Perdomo, I'm sure has enough shade. General, Altus, they have enough. I'm not worried about them. But will some of these smaller companies that have like small to medium sized factories, will they feel that? And I think they will feel it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see. The sort of three things that I'm looking for is: are we going to see mid-year price increases from some of the smaller brands who have to make cost decisions to acquire that tobacco that they weren't necessarily prepared for? Because as Coop said, maybe they don't have the buying capacity to buy tobacco for 2 years or 3 years. So, that's going to be one thing to look for. The second is, are we going to see a jump in the number of limited releases that are put out in 2024 as they struggle to commit to a full release of a cigar, of a new line? And then the third one that we're going to be looking for is, with the trade show being early in the year, with them committing to a new release for 2024, are we going to see a big, you would think with the trade show being early in the year that we should see more cigars released mid-year, but are we going to see a big slew of releases getting pushed even later this year as a result of inability to get tobacco to complete releases and have them shipped in time to sort of make the calendar year? So those are the three things that I'm kind of looking for.
Yeah, I mean,
I doubt we're going to notice any difference at all. That's my prediction.
I'd be all for less Ecuadorian wrapper. So, if you got other countries, and to Coop's point, if binder becomes wrapper, I'm fine with that. I don't care how the cigar looks, just make it flavorful. So if you can have a more flavorful wrapper by an ugly wrapper, let's do it. I don't care what it looks like, just give me the flavor. So that's why it's not the biggest Ecuadorian tobacco fan. So.
Yeah, but what's gonna be interesting is, and I get caught in this every time trap, like a tobacco's coming out of this off the wall country, and it's in the blend, and I'm really wow, it's this cigar's gonna have a Paraguayan wrapper, right? And every time this happens, right, I'm disappointed. I think JRE has done the best so far. I think JRE has done the best job at being able to come up with these innovative like things for wrapper from
Mhm.
that foam. I think they've absolutely. I think AJ's done a good job. I think the Nicaraguan broadleaf. It takes a few crop cycles, I think, to start getting this stuff going. But some of these other, like I said, I'm not getting caught up anymore with the Paraguayan wrap cigar, the Colombian wrap cigar. I'm not falling for that anymore.
Yeah.
Undisclosed.
Until the next one.
Undisclosed.
Until the next one.
I mean, there was a DP review today on some tobacco, and I was like, why are we doing this? Like,
Yeah.
it sounds great on paper, and then when you smoke it, you know what? It's the tobaccos that come out of DR, Nicaragua, US, and Honduras that are really, and Ecuador. Those 5 countries, those are the ones really producing the best tobaccos right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go Costa Rica in there a little bit, maybe.
Costa Rica. I put a little Costa Rica in there. You want to throw a little Peru in there, but again, when you start going deeper into Peruvian tobacco, I've had Peruvian puros. They're not that great. I gotta be honest with you. So
Yes, I remember with the Azteca.
there was it Azteca? I know the one. Yeah, Inca. Inca was
Inca.
one.
Sorry, that
Inca.
was there
It
you
was
go.
it just wasn't. It sounded great on and innovative on paper. Aaron, you talk about flavor. The flavor just is not as good as there's a reason why all these countries, we get great blends out of those countries I mentioned.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
I do worry a little bit that we'll see a spike in Mexican San Andre that isn't necessarily their kind of primary choice of wrapper, and they kind of had to pivot to Mexican San Andre. I think we saw that a couple of years ago where it seemed like everything was Mexican San Andre, and the difference between good and not good was very, very wide. Like it was a significant difference. So I hope we don't see that through 2024. And obviously, I hope for the people of Ecuador that things kind of calm down and industry gets back to normal, because these are people's livelihoods. So it'd be good to see
Yeah.
things stabilize a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Te Amo coming back. And the Turns have done some very good Mexican puro blends.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of confidence with something like that because it's not a first time thing. Mexican puro blends have been done in there. The Casa Turrents were very good. And so I'm
Been selling them in
confident.
Canada for decades.
Yeah, but the Casa Turrents, it's just a brand that they didn't have the marketing with it. But there were really good cigars that they were coming out with that company.
All right, the last topic I have is quantity of new releases in 2024. We kind of talked a little bit about TPE, PCA, but I'm curious with kind of just like the market itself with the change in dates. Do you think that we're going to see similar number of releases we did last year, more releases, less releases? Where do you think that's going to shake out at the end of the year?
Go
ahead, Coop.
I'm gonna say more.
Okay.
Because companies, like I said, they're not going to be under pressure to get these cigars. I'm sure some are going to try to release cigars right away. But I think, the fact that, probably a lot of these releases are not going to release till late in the year. Why not? Otherwise, you're going to have to wait a whole other year before you come out with these cigars. So why not show them off at the trade show and then just do your ship schedule accordingly right now? So
Yeah.
I actually think it's going to be an increase this year. Not a huge one, but I think we'll be surprised what we're going to see.
Plus, you got the whole factor of the sort of the FDA let up, and so who knows how long that's going to last.
Get that out now. Limiteds are easy to get.
Yeah,
out.
take what do they say? Make hay when the sun shines. Is that the saying? Make
That
hay
is the saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you could take advantage of the freedom. So I think Coop could be right on this one.
And you're the line extension. If you're the line, it could be another year of the line extension. You're the limited. So I mean, those two are going to be able. I think you'll see more. A lot of those, what I'm talking about, the increase, you'll probably see more in that category, for sure.
I'm gonna be bullish. I'm gonna say I think releases are gonna be flat this year. I think.
So
I don't
you're
see
bearish. You're gonna be
The
bearish.
bear
Bearish, pardon
behind
me.
you says differently. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna say bearish. I think releases are gonna be fairly flat year over year. I don't think we're gonna see a big jump. I do agree with Coop. I think we're gonna see more of a shift of focus on line extensions through 2024 rather than new brands. I think, and I do believe that we're gonna see some of those releases pushed later in the year for 2024 than what they were in 2023. So for reviewers, that might create a bit of a challenge through kind of the April, May, June timeline where we might be scrambling a little bit to get our hands on some of the new product for 2024. I think that might be a bit of a challenge for us this year, more than years in the past.
Yeah, my wish is that everybody takes kind of take it easy this year. Don't rush anything out. Just go slow. Next year, you're going to be on your cycle after this trade show here in March, into March. You'll have your whole year to get it done. Just take it easy this year. Make it really quality for 2025. I know it's not what everyone wants to hear for this year, but just just take it easy. Don't go crazy here. Don't rush anything out.
I gotta say, Aaron, I like the sort of the Perdomo strategy of just because there's a trade show doesn't mean we have to have a new cigar every trade show.
Exactly.
Like you have, be with
I
the
do too.
purpose, release your cigars with a purpose like Perdomo does. Like, I feel like a lot of these companies feel like, oh, there's TP, we got to have something for TP. Oh, there's PCA, we got to have something for You don't necessarily have you could go to the show and just offer some sort of deal or different, maybe some other different sort of packaging or whatever. You don't always have to have a new cigar for every show, and then you just end up with a million SKUs, and then you got to get rid of them. Like I like that more. I appreciate that approach so much more.
I can't see Perdomo coming out with a new cigar this year
No,
at the trade show.
No,
and they should. I don't think they should. I mean, if Nick's listening, I don't think he should, because 30th got off to a nice start. You have now a great chance to maybe they'll look at opening up more shops with that. I think that may be a goal they look at.
Right. You can do
And the
other goals besides a new cigar.
Yeah, and you'll get a lot of retailers who want it. That's if they do that, you'll get a lot of more retailers that will do that. So I think there's a lot. A lot of people haven't even tried that cigar, I'm sure, yet. Who the shops that don't have it. So I think I agree with you. I don't think you need to do that. I mean, if you're one of the big four companies, it's a different story. You have much more of a bigger product innovation pipeline. So I mean, and you can do it, right? But Perdomo's, I think Perdomo, I take the 6. Perdomo's probably the 7th company I'd put into that group. I don't know. I've heard Saka say this is going to be a slower year for him.
Yeah, he said that on our show. Yeah,
He'll probably only have 4 releases, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, but I think this is a good year for Steve to kind of wind it down a little. His portfolio is getting pretty big.
Yeah, of those 4, his goal is the top 3 in the consensus, right?
Right. I mean,
So
get the Wagashis out to everybody, and you'll win the consensus next year. I mean, that's on that.
Yeah. Any topics that we didn't hit that you guys wanted to mention at all, or we can wrap this one up right around.
Do we want to
2 hour
talk
mark.
about looking forward trade show 2025?
That was mine too.
Go ahead.
Let's do that one.
So 2025, New Orleans, change in locate. I kind of want to bring back something. Coop, do you think that nobody's complaining about Las Vegas Convention Center because they realize that the next year they have to go to New Orleans?
Yeah, I think that I go back to when we were sitting in the opening day, and Scott Pierce makes 2 announcements. He first just reiterates the announcement. Trade shows moving to March. Standing ovation, applause. Then we're going to New Orleans in 2025. No booing, but it was like lukewarm clapping. You can see it, and I think that's the scenario that happens there. PCA, I think I think they've done a great job at resurrecting that whole organization, and you got to give Scott a lot of credit. A lot of us remember the 2015 show in New Orleans. The one thing I have confidence with is that this staff knows they have to do, and I think it's going to be in New Orleans at least 2 years. I don't think it's going to, anything I'm hearing, I don't think it goes further. They have to show that they can make an experience in New Orleans. That's going to be the key thing in 2025. I have confidence in the PCA as it stands with the board and the executive staff. They will do that. That could change in a year. If things change, I don't know. People are in and out of roles. That's going to, but they have to figure of getting a big experiential. They have a lot of challenges with New Orleans, but there's also huge cost savings going to New Orleans. So it's in their best interest to figure out how to really knock it out of the park in 2025. Because if they could sell the industry that New Orleans is a viable place for a trade show, it could be a vibrant, exciting place to go at the time of the year people like, then they're going to be in good shape. But that's a challenge, and it's going to take a lot of work to do that.
God, I'm dreading that so badly. It might be the first trade show we just don't go to because
we have Ben. We have Ben. Ben is going to be key with us.
Oh,
he's a Cajun guy, so He has vowed to make the experience great for us no matter what.
Uh,
Yeah, the announcement I'm expecting at the media panel this year, the big news I'm expecting is a multi-year contract for New Orleans to carry through 2025, 2026. I think that's the I think you have to. I think just from a perspective of making the cost benefit for manufacturers, exhibitors to ship to New Orleans, I think it makes a lot more sense to have it 2 years so that it kind of buffers that cost a little bit before you decide to go back to Vegas or wherever that 2027 timeline will be, which doesn't even seem like a real year, but you kind of have to plan a couple 2-3 years in advance to know where you're going to land so that people can plan for that. And like you said, Coop, I think they've done a lot of really great things. They've moved in a really positive direction. There's lots of opportunities, so it'll be up to the PCA as to whether they can deliver that exponential thing for New Orleans.
If it was the old regime in charge, I would tell you this would be I'd be like Eric. I don't know if it's just that's how I would look at that. But I agree. I think a multi-year, at least 2 years, is in the best interest of the PCA. Because if they could sell the industry on New Orleans, the costs of operating the trade show are so much cheaper in New Orleans. And as long as they got all the commitments from New Orleans that we could do things, and I think it could be a big hit. I do think they want to eventually get it back to Vegas, but hey, if it's a profitable show and people are happy, why would they change it at that point? But they're gonna have to sell the industry on this, and it's gonna take a lot of work.
All right. Any other topics that we missed? All
It-
right. Go ahead.
No, we hit limited. I think we hit the limited stuff already. I was gonna
Yeah.
say, so I think we're good with that.
Kind of hit
yeah.
those along with the anniversary stuff.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
All right. I think that's a wrap. So, Eric, I know it's a big week on Dojo. What you got going over there the rest of the week?
All right, so Wednesday, Flavor Odyssey, we are doing the M81 Maduro from Drew Estate with the blackened whiskey
Black and
pairing.
whiskey.
So it seems like all the fellas, we all have a sort of a different version of the blackened whiskey, so that'll be fun. And so we'll be doing that. And then Friday, I can't say the show yet, but I can just tell you guys that you're gonna really like it. It's gonna be fun. And if you're into the year-end lists, this could be one of the most wild things you've ever seen. And then we have a special show coming up on Thursday. It's early in the day on February 8th. We have Michael Knowles, popular podcaster who started his own cigar brand called Mayflower Cigars, which sold a gazillion already. So we're going to have him on the show, which is going to be a ton of fun. That's Thursday, February 8th. It's an early start time at like 6 Eastern. Strange time, but that was the only time we could get him. So we'll be doing that on February 8th.
Awesome. All right, Coop. I know you got a couple shows going on this week.
Yeah, we have actually. I'll talk about 3 the next week. So we have 2 big game shows. They're different shows. So the first one is tomorrow with John Carney, who has kind of done the Super Bowl show with us since Stogie Geeks days. So we always bring John Carney on. That's kind of a hardcore, a definite sports talk thing with that. But we're also doing one on Jukebox on Monday. John's going to be a part of that because John kind of did the NFL picks with us at the beginning of the year. That one's going to be focused. There's going to be more of a music slant with that one too because we talk a lot about the halftime shows and the performances and. Dave is more into the halftime shows than the game, even though he loves football. So I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of Taylor Swift talk with that. So that's exciting. But we different than they're 2 different shows entirely. And then
That's what I want is more Taylor Swift talk.
well, that's gonna be a lot of debate.
Can't get away from it.
Yep. We did a Taylor Swift show, and it was one of our most viewed jukebox shows ever. It was in the top 5 of all time. So
that just goes to show you the sorry state of the world that we live in.
well, we could debate that. Right?
Biggest name in music, man.
We can't.
They're going to
ignore it.
rename the Kansas City Swifties. If it goes on long enough.
Yeah. And then we haven't announced this yet. So Aaron and I just told Aaron about it today. Thursday on primetime, a really good friend of the show coming on. Always a great show. Jeff Borshowitz of Corona Cigar is going to be a guest. One thing I know one thing we're definitely gonna talk about with Jeff is his end of year list.
Okay.
Because there's always interesting data to get through with that. So, and we haven't had Jeff on for actually almost 2 years. So pretty excited to have that. We'll talk about, FSG, state of the industry. Jeff's always entertaining with that. So that will be on Thursday night. I'm really glad we have him back there. So, and he has agreed to do, I already told him about the listing, so he's all excited about it. So,
Nice.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right, Eric, I want to thank you. Coop, want to thank you. John, thank you as
Yeah.
always. There's always a fun conversation getting us together and kind of reminiscing and looking forward. So I appreciate that. Looking to do this again in the future as well. So thank you all that tuned in. Enjoy the wrap on 2023 this week on Developing Palates. We'll have our value cigar of the year list going up tomorrow. And then Friday, we will share all of our kind of review data in regards to averages for price and each of the guys' review scores and by country and all that kind of stuff. So we're wrapping up 2023 this week. Looking forward to 24. So thank you all for joining again, and we'll catch you all on the next one.
See ya.